Welcome everyone. Intermittent fasting, or short form which is IF, is currently one of the most popular health and fitness trends. People all over the world are using it now to lose weight, improve their health in numerous ways, and achieve this goal with a simple do it yourself at home method. This video will be a beginner's guide to intermittent fasting and a layperson's guide to how we can use this in our daily lives. Many studies, including a detailed review article in a very respected medical journal called NAGM, New England Journal of Medicine, shows that it can have magical beneficial effects on many parts of your body like the heart, brain, skeletal muscle, and even various hormones can change, and this can even sometimes help you to live longer. In this video, we are going to explore the various aspects of intermittent fasting. My journey of intermittent fasting started from a family trip to Bhutan. Tiger's Nest is a very prominent Himalayan Buddhist sacred temple which is located on the cliffside of the Upper Paro Valley in Bhutan. And you can see that in this red circle. It's way high above the sea level, about 10,000 feet. Hiking to this place is a very common trek and takes about 4 hours. But I couldn't do it. I stopped midway and huffed and puffed with my overweight body. There's always a time in somebody's life when they tend to say that it's enough. That was my time when I said it's enough. I saw 72-year-old person passing me and completing the trek so easily. I was ashamed of my own body and my own health. I went and asked him how did he do it. He said he's been practicing intermittent fasting since many years. I got curious into this, and this is how this video comes about. This is my experiment with intermittent fasting. What I discovered about intermittent fasting really blew my mind, and I've been practicing it myself and advocating it to all my patients since then. I have seen fantastic results in health and fitness. I have lost weight myself, and I have helped many other people do the same. More importantly, it feels fantastic doing it. When I was researching intermittent fasting, I wanted to research about the obesity epidemic that we are all going through. Contrary to what we might believe, more than all the other epidemics, obesity is the most ignored and obesity is the most dangerous. It's one of the biggest killers of humanity right now. It is associated with highly elevated risks of adverse health outcomes, mainly non-communicable diseases. What are these non-communicable diseases? NCDs for short. NCDs are diseases which are not really caused by any infectious agents, but something like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, raised triglycerides, raised cholesterol. These are chronic diseases of long duration and very slow progression. Because they are very slow to progress, it doesn't hit our mind as much as epidemics of diarrhea or viral infections or tuberculosis. It's a slow, ongoing, slow burn of your body. Would you know that 70% of humans died last year just with NCDs? So globally, two-thirds of the deaths just happen with NCDs. And if we can do something about it, it really changes the health globally of every human. 1 in 4 Indians have a risk of dying from NCD before they reach the age of 70. Amongst all these NCDs, cardiovascular diseases account for the most NCD deaths, followed by cancers, respiratory diseases, and diabetes. But importantly, most of these premature deaths are preventable. And what's the common thread binding all of this? Obesity. And that is what we'll be talking about. The latest NFHS, which is a government survey, Government of India survey, in 2016 shows a very worrying trend. Obesity rates have doubled in men and risen by 62% in females as compared to the last data which happened 10 years back. This is very, very important to understand. We are becoming obese and that's creating so many diseases for us. Look at the situation 20 years back. Most states in India were in the green yellow zone, which indicates a lower weight. But look at what happened now. Look at the dramatic increase of red and orange zones. These are overweight states. Almost all states in India are suffering with a lot of obesity, and that is why we are having so many diseases. If we stratify this by age, most increase, as you can see by the yellow and the blue lines, is happening in the 30 to 50-year-old population. And this population is becoming the most obese. So the middle age individuals are at most threat to get obesity. Now, if we plot the percentage of obese people and NCDs, it's a linear association. More obese you are, more diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, strokes, kidney disease, and even some cancers can be brought about just with obesity. It's a flabbergasting fact. Just with reducing obesity, you can reduce one of the biggest killers of humankind, which is non-communicable diseases. And you visit any hospital, you will see so many patients of these chronic diseases crowding out the OPDs. Most of these diseases are controllable by just controlling weight. So this video then is about how to reduce weight, and I'm going to show you an extremely simple, almost foolproof method to do that. So you can avoid all these big diseases yourself and for your family members. One of the classical models of obesity was, and it's still there in so many people's mind, is the calorie model of obesity, which means that people think that obesity happens when you have more intake of calories and the expenditure of calories is less. So that's called the calorie model. This is true in a sense, but it's not a very important concept. Some people thought that okay, if we eat 2000 calories a day and we burn those 2000 calories by exercising, we would not gain weight. But that's not true. For example, 500 calories of bread will have far more weight increasing responses than 500 calories of broccoli. So stop counting calories. More important than calories is the hormonal theory of obesity. Which hormone are we talking about? Is insulin. We have to completely focus on insulin. There are many other hormones which can create obesity, but for the purpose of this video, we'll focus on the strongest and the more important one, which is insulin. This is completely in your hand. What is insulin? Insulin basically is a hormone which is secreted by this red colored gland, which is pancreas. And when does the insulin come out? Insulin comes out under the stimulation of carbohydrates. High insulin means more weight. More weight, since insulin is a fat depositor. Whereas lowering the insulin means that you will use and burn that internal body fat, causing weight loss. We have to know that there are three broad macronutrients that we have, that we consume: fat, proteins, and carbohydrates. Let's focus at this time on the main one responsible for the obesity epidemic, which is surprisingly carbohydrates. Most of us have grown thinking that fats are the one which is making you fat, but this video will tell you that the more bigger culprit is not the fat, not the protein, the carbohydrates. So carbohydrate is fueling this whole obesity epidemic, and this is what we need to really understand. Now, if you eat carbs, carbohydrate intake, especially the refined processed variety, triggers massive amount of insulin release, which then causes fat deposition, while when we fast as an intermittent fasting, we do not trigger this insulin release. Or if you have even a low carbohydrate diet like a whole grain diet, insulin release will be slower. So if you fast, then your insulin goes down. If you are on a low carbohydrate diet, your insulin goes down. So having more carbohydrates makes you deposit fat. So if you eat a lot of carbohydrate rich meals, for example, let's look at refined bread, the white bread, let's look at juices, let's look at sugary fruits. All these will spike your insulin and you will deposit fat, and that fat is making you obese. Fast, or if you were to have a low carbohydrate diet, you would have a less insulin in your system, and this time the stored fat is burnt, and this will happen with the help of lowered insulin. So when you lower your insulin, your internal body fat is burnt, and that burning of internal body fat is making you then thinner. This is the entire concept of intermittent fasting. All of us wake up fasted. All of us wake up with very low insulin levels in the blood. But what happens? As soon as we wake up, we are conditioned to want something. that could be tea, that could be biscuits, or we jump directly into breakfast. Let's see what happens to the insulin now. Insulin levels, what happens to them? Most of the breakfast that we consume are rich in refined carbohydrates like bread, cereals, roti. What is carbohydrates? Nothing but a chain of glucose molecules. So when you have bread, even though it does not taste sweet, it is glucose when it gets converted into your body. To neutralize this glucose, what happens? The insulin then shoots up and you start to deposit fat right in the morning. But if you were to have continued the overnight fast by not having a breakfast meal, we would have continued to have low insulin and we would then be in a fat burning zone. So skipping that breakfast would have ensured that you continue to burn fat, but then because you broke that by using breakfast, and that's why, by the way, that is called breakfast, because you are breaking your fast by having that kind of a breakfast, and the insulin then spikes up. Now let's see, what is the role of this insulin? Why does it shoot up with a carb or a sugar rich meal? Let's see that. When you have a carb rich meal, your sugar levels in your body goes up. Insulin then is released by the pancreas. Think of this insulin as a key which will open a lock on the surface of your cells. We'll see that in the next slide. This is glucose and this is the cell. And the glucose which you have just eaten needs to get into the cell for ATP energy production. But this glucose cannot go into the cell. The key, which we spoke about in the last slide, is the actual insulin, which then opens up this cell. And this allows this glucose molecule to enter the cell. That is why this carb-rich diet has stimulated massive insulin key production. So this is what the insulin does. It makes the glucose go into the cell. Then this glucose levels of your blood will obviously go down. As you can see in this chart, the glucose has gone back down. And insulin level is also then going to go back down because now there's no need to push too much because already gone into the cell. This insulin level would have gone down to baseline only after many hours. But what happens? Before that insulin has gone back to the baseline, you have eaten again. In the mistaken belief that frequent meals are good for you and it's time to eat again. So it's time for lunch. By this time, insulin has still not gone back down completely, but you start spiking again. But you spike from a higher baseline and then you shoot up higher than your previous spike. Insulin gets to release again. When the insulin is again coming in, again it pushes the glucose back into the cell and the same cycle is repeated. This sugar will again and the insulin again goes back down. So do you realize that with every carbohydrate meal, it's a way to push up your insulin and insulin gets triggered only to come back down after some hours. If you understand now, with any spike that you have had your food. With every food you have, you spiking your insulin levels, you spiking your sugar levels, and the more meals you take, the more spike you will have. But as you can see from this chart, it's a higher and higher spike with every meal because you start from a higher baseline. You're not allowed the last meal to be metabolized. You have put in a second meal, and this is with 3 meals in a day. But then what happens? Do we have 3 meals in a day? That was happening in the past. Now we are not even having 3 meals. Most modern humans are having many meals. So 3 meals and maybe 3 snacks. So about 6 to 7 times that you're going to eat, and with every eat, you're going to spike your insulin, you're going to spike your sugars, and your sugar will chronically keep on going up. Your insulin keeps on going up, and this is then a situation where every meal is spiking your insulin. This is chronically high insulin levels in your blood. But this insulin level, which is now so high, look at the black line, it's a high blood insulin. But this insulin is still able to push glucose into your cells. So your sugar level seems to be normal. It does give you a false sense of reassurance that, oh, I'm fine because my fasting sugar, my postprandial sugar is going to be okay. So people get a feeling that they are not having a problem. But you have to understand this, that your insulin is already high. So if you were to measure a fasting insulin or a postprandial, that means after meal insulin, you will have a high insulin level. But this patients don't come to know, because the routine test usually is a sugar level in a health checkup. But you have to know this is a ticking time bomb. And over many years of having this assault on your system, one day the key stops working. And the glucose which you ate now and the carbohydrates that you ate now is not entering into the cell. So your cell is in fact starved when outside there's a lot of sugar which you're eating, but it cannot go inside. This is called insulin resistance, meaning you are resistant to the action of insulin, and this is also called as glucose intolerance. Of course, this doesn't happen immediately, but it takes many years. So what happens? Now that you take a lot of carbohydrate diet, the glucose cannot enter and the glucose comes back out. And this is now an elevated sugar level as well. Ultimately, you would now be called as a type 2 diabetic. So the entire type 2 diabetic epidemic has partly been created by an improper diet and focusing on carbohydrate meals and too frequent meals. So if you were to keep a gap between meals, that will help. If you have a low carbohydrate diet, that will help. This spike is primarily triggered, as you can see, by carbohydrate. You can measure this insulin resistance by a simple test, which is HbA1c. You can check this high insulin by an HbA1c test. Not a very accurate test. It's a rough measure, but a simple measure to look at and enhance your understanding of this insulin resistance. Typically, we say that if you are below 5.7 of your HbA1c, you are normal. With a pre-diabetes situation, you are between 5.7 to 6.4, where most of these people would be, who are having a high insulin but still not worsening their sugars, and they're getting this false sense of relief, and that will be the pre-diabetes situation. And if you don't control that now, you would then get into the diabetic range where the sugar level starts to go up, and that will come up in your blood test, and then the HbA1c would be about 6.5 or even higher. There's obviously a lot of studies happening between the correlation between HbA1c and sugar levels, but HbA1c is a easy thing to understand for lay people, so it's something that we can focus on. There are also some clinical signs of this high HbA1c and this high insulin resistance and chronically high insulin levels in your blood. If your neck folds are becoming a bit dark, as you can see on the left side, and you can see a little bit of skin tags also, which is just some soft proliferation, small outpouching of skin coming on the neck, same blackishness and the outpouching of skin coming in the armpits. The armpits become a bit dark and become a bit black. You can see again on the left side a bit of skin tags. These skin tags is a sign that you are not tolerating your glucose very well and already possibly fat by now. And you can see the same thing on the right side on the face as well. That's your sign that you need to get in and get an HbA1c test and a fasting sugar test. You need to control your diet. Insulin resistance, does it only create diabetes as we have said? No. Insulin resistance is a central theme in so many diseases. Look at the second one, PCOD, polycystic ovary disease, one of the classical problems which modern women are having a lot of cyst in the ovaries on the periphery. This cyst is a problem for so many females, and they then become obese. They have menstrual irregularities, they can even have infertility because of that. Can you realize all this is just caused by improper diet? Heart disease now, as we will see in the later slides as well, heart disease epidemic, cardiovascular diseases is fueled by a high carbohydrate meal. So whatever carbohydrate that you take inside, that not only is creating diabetes, it's also becoming cholesterol and it's becoming lipids which are damaging the lining of your coronary heart vessels, and that damage is creating a lot of cardiovascular disease. Kidney disease, one of the, if you ask a nephrologist how many patients do they see of kidney disease, they would tell you that it's increasing. There's so many people on dialysis, there's so many people needing a kidney transplant, and so many causes of kidney disease are, one of the classical causes, diabetes and obesity and hypertension. So all that is basically being fueled now by a carbohydrate rich diet. Even hypertension can be controlled by reducing the insulin resistance. So a lot of causes of kidney disease can again be handled just by reducing your insulins. Strokes, as I said about cardiovascular disease, stroke is one of the commonest things that we are seeing now in the neurology practice. For people, you talk to them, you'll see that a lot of strokes are increasing again with hypertension, again with diabetes, with stress levels. Acne, something we would see as dermatologists. A lot of females come to us with acne which does not respond now to medication. A lot of it happens just with obesity. Fatty liver, one of the classical problems now. You ask a gastroenterology person that are they seeing a lot of fatty livers? That's increasing by leap and bound. In fact, now earlier, people used to think that alcohol is one of the worst culprits for liver disease or hepatitis B or hepatitis C infections, but now they say fat deposition in the liver, and that is because of insulin resistance. Obesity, as we spoke of, Alzheimer's disease, you start forgetting, dementia, old age diseases. These Alzheimer's disease is not treatable. There's no treatment for this, but prevention, you can start to do that by reducing the insulins. Hypertension, even some cancers. If you go to websites, you can go to international well-renowned societies of cancers, they say control your weight. Weight loss is one effective method to control some cancers. Not all cancers, some cancers can definitely be controlled just by the simple thing of reducing weight. Sleep apnea, people can't sleep well at night because they're obese and they snore. All that can be handled just by reducing the insulin and reducing the insulin resistance. Let's look at what happens with fat, proteins, and carbohydrates when it comes to sugar spiking and when it comes to insulin release. You should know that fat has the least amount of sugar release. When you take fat in the diet, it does not spike up your sugar levels, and that's why the amount of insulin that you need to release to counteract that is not so much. So I've just drawn a single key for that. When you take proteins in your diet, it needs more insulins to control that protein intake that you take in. But look at carbohydrates, it spikes up your sugar so much, especially the refined carbohydrates, and the amount of insulin you would need is a massive amount of insulin then that you would need to control this spike. So now you understand that fat and proteins don't increase your insulin, so it will not create insulin resistance. So all the diseases that we spoke about till now, about diabetes and hypertension and cancers and sleep apneas and strokes, they are not being fueled by fats and proteins, but they are being fueled by carbohydrates. What happens now? We understood that there's a lot of insulin now. This chronic insulin must park this glucose somewhere. It's not going into the cell, as I said, because of insulin resistance. So this key will take this glucose molecule and push it into the liver and even into the muscle, converting it to glycogen. Glycogen, think of it as a stored form of this glucose. But what happens? There's so much of glucose to park. The capacity of glycogen conversion has been exceeded. So then what happens? This glucose which is there, this glycogen now is exhausted, and this glucose now gets converted into fat. This is now fatty liver. So this is the genesis of fatty liver. So you would now understand that whatever fat you deposit is not because of the fat in your diet. It's because of carbohydrates in your diet which is getting converted to this fat because there's so much coming in. Let's take an analogy. Let's take an analogy. Now, think of the carb food that we eat as running daily use cash. So I'm depicting by a purse and cash coming in. So a little bit of cash coming in every day is okay. But we're eating too much, 6 to 7 meals a day. So a lot of carbohydrates are coming in, like bread and wheat. So more cash inflow we would have in our house. What do? We store it into a house locker. So now our house locker is flooded with money. Think of this locker as glycogen in the liver. But what happens? The money keeps on coming in. Our house locker, as you can see here, is also overflowing as there's just too much of cash coming in, which means a lot of carb-rich foods. So what do? When you have so much money filling up in our house, our purses are bulging, our house locker is bulging. What do? We say, oh, it's not safe in our house. Let's now put this money into the larger locker that we have, which is a bank locker now. So the bank locker is where you put all that money in, and your bank locker, analogy wise, is fat inside your liver and inside your organs, inside your adipocytes. So now your glucose, which is coming in so much, is finally getting a resting place inside the fat in your organs. And this fat is a very dangerous fat. We call this visceral fat. And this visceral fat is a very bad fat because it can create so many diseases. So now you understand from this that the more carb rich diet that you take, especially the refined carbs, you're going to deposit a lot of fats in your organs. And this fatty bank is unlimited storage. You can take any amount of lockers in your bank, they will never say no. And that is why this adipocytes keeps on bulging, never refusing that particular carbohydrate coming in. This increased fat in your viscera, visceral fat as we said, will increase your waist size. And one of the classical images of people going around, you look at them, their waist size is increasing. And if you now realize who's increasing their waist, children are not increasing their waist as much as the middle-aged people. You don't have teenagers with bulging belly. But if you see 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old people, they're walking around with bulging bellies, and that typically is a sign of that fat getting deposited in your system. This is the abdominal girth guidelines for Asians, which is different from the WHO guidelines for other people. For Asians, we need to have a lower parameter for health. Look at the green zone, the yellow zone, and the red zone for males. This is the abdominal girth measured at the umbilicus level. At the umbilicus level, after you expire, and that is the time you should measure it. If your abdominal girth is less than 31 inches in a male, then you're in the green safe zone. 31 to 36 inches, you're going to be in the yellow zone, and more than 36 inches is going to be in the red zone in males. Females, the criteria is even lesser, less than 28 inches, green zone, 32 for a yellow, and more than 32 for a red zone. So if you are trying to reduce your abdominal girth, it's one of the best things you can do to improve your weight, improve your health. And how do we reduce the abdominal girth? That we are going to talk about, and that is where the intermittent fasting really comes in. So this is now the intervention that we can do once you understand what happens when you eat wrongly. Now what can you do to undo this? Whenever I mention intermittent fasting as a treatment for obesity, and I recommend it for so many people in my clinic, it always shocks the person hearing it. He says, oh, I have to fast for these many hours. They perceive hunger, they perceive starvation, they perceive nutritional deficiencies, but no, it's a magical remedy for all non-communicable diseases. Let's see what happens when we fast, intermittent fasting. What happens in this particular problem, in particular fasting method? When you fast, there's no external glucose coming in. There's no glucose coming in. The process of using and storing this food, which you were doing till here when we ate, that's not there. So when we don't eat, insulin levels drop, signaling the body to start burning whatever you had. So you have accumulated so much of fat over so many years of eating wrongly, you have plenty inside. Don't worry about it. There's always a belief that, oh, if I don't if I fast and I don't eat, I will feel weak, I will feel lethargic, I will not be able to go to office and work. No, that's not true. All of us have plenty of stored energy inside which we are not focusing on. We are too dependent on external sources of fuel, and we ignore the internal sources of fuel that we have. What are those internal sources? We just spoke about that. The glycogen in the liver is the first to be used up. So if you stop having cash in your house, if your purse is empty, how do you fill your purse with money? You say, okay, I filled my house locker with money, it's overflowing, let me take out some money from there. So the first thing to be accessed to use that particular sugar is glycogen is broken down, and glycogen is now being used as an energy source. But how much money do we have in this house locker? Not much, right? It's a small locker. So this store is now going to be blocked. This store is empty, so you're not able to get the money from this locker. So then what do? You say, okay, I put a lot of it in the bank as well. So now the body remembers that, oh, I have a lot of fat in the liver and the organs. The insulin is very low. You need that low insulin to extract fat from your internal organs, and then you fuel your body from your internal fat. And that is why intermittent fasting will not make you lethargic. It will not make you feel hungry so much, because you are actually getting all the energy that you need from inside. But because you can't see it, you get this false impression that you are hungry. It's not. You are getting plenty of glucose. This is the giant bank locker which you put so much money into, that's getting used up. This fat is getting metabolized into glucose, also getting metabolized into ketones. There's a chemical called as ketones which is also getting produced in your system. So, in a sense, the internal body fat feeds you and you're less dependent on external sources of food. And that's the entire concept of intermittent fasting. And that's why it's so easy to do, because you are getting a lot of energy from your inside as well. See what happens if you fast. Let's assume you fast for about 12 to 14 hours. With this 12 to 14 hours, you will have this internal body stored fat, which is triglycerides. This triglyceride is going to be broken down to fatty acids. This fatty acids will convert to ketones through your liver, and this will give you all the energy that you need for your heart muscles, for your skeletal muscles, for your brain. You can easily use this ketone or the ketone bodies to fuel them. So your mind stays alert. In fact, ketones will make you more alert. And that's why so many people of intermittent fasting have told us that they feel more alert as the fasting increases. In fact, very contrary to what people would have thought in the beginning, that it will make you feel lethargic, make you feel worse. It does not. It makes you feel alert. And I can vouch that from my own personal experiences. I have fasted so many days for 25, 26, even 27 hours, and you will be magically feeling so good. In fact, you would feel lousiest when there's food in your body from external meals, and as the fasting goes on, you feel better and better and better, and you would be so thrilled to feel that internal euphoric feeling, because you're not dependent on the external fat. In fact, this try some people say that no, your brain needs glucose for energy, it cannot use ketones, but that's wrong. Your brain can use ketones for energy. The triglycerides also becomes glucose, and that glucose can in fact even go to the brain. So brain is getting two fuel sources. It's getting ketones, it's getting glucose. Both is helping you stay alert. It gives you a lot of concentration. It helps you perform better. In fact, a lot of people I have read, even in Silicon Valley in the US, they in fact CEOs, they are practicing intermittent fasting to enhance their performance in their work. So it's something that is being done by a lot of people. When you lose so much of fat, would it not be so easy to lose your abdominal weight? In fact, a six-pack ab is as much about exercise as much as it is about losing that fat in your belly, and that fat can be lost just by intermittent fasting. So you don't have to struggle and do a lot of exercise, which you can combine for sure, but you have to reduce your body fat, which you can do just by intermittent fasting. Now you would think this is so unnatural and unhealthy. Who would fast? You think it's wrong, but we were always designed this way. We were at one point of time hunter gatherers without food storage capability. We don't have a refrigerator. Food had to be hunted all the time and gathered. It was not available 24/7. Naturally, we had to fast for days on end. Our bodies already adapted that way. Eating all the time, in fact, is the abnormal thing. 50 years back, we ate 33 meals a day. In the next 30 years, we now are eating about 6 meals in a day. Over time, this constant meal intake is insulin surging. Buddhist monks, Muslims during Ramadan, Hindus, Christians are all known to abstain from eating. Cult figures like Mahatma Gandhi fasted a lot. In fact, his longest fast was 21 days. Did you see how thin he was? He was not obese. So our body was never designed for get up in the morning, have breakfast. We were not supposed to have this much. We were supposed to be alert also. If you didn't find a meal on day one, you would be alert the next day, so you have higher chances of finding a hunt. And that's the reason why in fact you would feel more alert after a long fast, because that's your natural biological way. The body thinks that the person has not got food, he needs to hunt, so his brain has to be alert, and the fasting then makes you alert to hunt down that prey which you can catch the next. So what are the fasting benefits? Fasting, I told you, is an excellent way, intermittent fasting, to lose your weight. But is it only the only thing which happens? No. It is now being used for so many other things. It reduces body inflammation. Inflammation is the root of so many diseases. If you can reduce inflammation just by fast, would that not be such a good anti-inflammatory process? Your skeletal muscles are responding better because of a hormone which gets released called as human growth hormone. So with human growth hormone release, which happens during fasting, you are making a lot of muscle. In fact, if you exercise and you do a gym while fasting, it will help, because the human growth hormone would increase. And then when you finally break your fast after a gym training, then the insulin gets surged up. And this insulin can also help you deposit that amino acids into the muscle. So in fact, you would respond better to a gym, and you can make more muscle with that endeavor. The gut microbiome, as I can show you here. What is a gut microbiome? These are bacteria that we have in the intestines. This bacteria is called a good bacteria. We call it microbiome. The health of this good bacteria is directly related to health. The more you fast, the better bacteria you have in your intestines, and this will really improve your health manifold. It reduces blood pressure. So many studies have shown that intermittent fasting reduces blood pressure, and that is reducing your blood pressure medications. So you can do that as well. It is, as I said, known to have an anti-cancer activity for a lot of cancers, for example, breast, uterine, colon cancers. It improves heart muscle contraction. So even the heart muscles contract better with just intermittent fasting. So don't reduce intermittent fasting just to an obesity reducing modality. It does so much for you. Even more, it reduces the cholesterol triglyceride deposit in your blood vessels, or going to your heart, going to your brain, and that is why your blood vessels are more open for more circulation to reach your vital organs. You would have less chances for cardiovascular disease, for heart attacks, for stroke. Would that not be so magical? So you can reduce that cholesterol deposit in your vessels, not by reducing the fat in your diet. In fact, the healthy fats like omega-3 fats, for example, in the diet is so healthy. Don't stay away from too much of fats, stay away from carbohydrates. Even arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, for example, is reducing with intermittent fasting. It reduces Alzheimer's disease, as we spoke, stroke prevention, cognition, your alertness, that means your brain alertness. So if you get old, it's a common belief that as you grow old, you would lose your brain capacities. If you want to reverse that, you want to have a healthy aging regimen, you want to be healthier as a 75-year-old, as a 100-year-old person, start intermittent fasting. It is known to reduce the episodes of exacerbation of asthma, and that again is so many benefits away from fasting as well. So how do I do intermittent fasting? So now that you understand this, how do we do it? Intermittent fasting means you feed for a small time and you fast for a larger amount of time. The more common regimen that people do is 8 hours of feeding and 16 hours of fasting. But you don't even need to go there directly. You can start with a smaller fast. You can do a 12 and a 12, meaning 12 hours of fast, 12 hours of eat. Then you can go ahead and do a 16 hours of fast and 8 hours of eat, going even further to 20 hours of fast and 4 hours of eat. And you will magically realize that as you grow ahead, you'll find you want to do higher and higher fast, because it's so good to do, it's so pleasurable to do this. Some people even gone ahead to something called as OMAD, one meal in a day. So just one meal they take in a day. That again sounds drastic, but it's not. Once you do it, you will understand how good it will be. There is a threat. Some people feel that, oh, we'll have nutritional deficiencies with one meal in a day, but you can add a little bit of multivitamins. You can have a B12 tablet once a week if you're a vegan. But for most of the routine diets like 12-12 and 16-8, you don't need too much. You can easily manage your nutritional balance with this kind of fast. So what happens now? This is the original insulin level, which is shown by the dotted line. This was if you were to be eating 6 meals in a day. What happens if you skipped your breakfast? You would continue to burn fat in the morning, and then you have your lunch. So there's a small spike of your insulin, and then you have your dinner. So 2 meals in a day, there are two spikes. Can you see it's much lower than your original insulin? So in practice, you have reduced your insulin, and that is when you would start getting the benefits. You want to go ahead and skip 2 meals, skip breakfast, skip lunch. You have a very small spike, a drastic reduction of insulin, drastic reduction of weight, drastic reduction of your blood glucose. In fact, people who are early diabetics can benefit really well from this, reducing their sugar levels, and their medicines which they take are going to work better. The anti-diabetics will work better. They would in fact sometimes be able to reduce it to an extent that they almost feel that, oh, there's no need for that external supplementation because their body is becoming healthier. So in effect, just to summarize, when you have a high carb diet, you have a high glucose in your system, and with glucose going up, your insulin shoots up as well, and you would start to become fat, you would have a lot of belly fat, and you would become unhealthy with a lot of non-communicable diseases. And if you were to fast or a low carbohydrate diet, you would reduce your glucose, reduce your insulin, and that is when you start to become healthier, avoiding many diseases of humankind right now. And you become thin, lose your belly, your trousers start to loosen up, and you would start to become healthier. So how do we fast? As we said, start slow. 12-12 you can increase to 14-10, then 16-8, 18-6, 24, and the last one is one meal in a day, and that's the regimen depending on how good you feel with it. This then helps us understand. This entire video was created so that you understand that, and something that I completely believe in, food can fix it. We are dependent too much on external medications now to cure us of diseases, but food is medicine. If you don't think of food as medicine, then you will have to think of medicine as your food. It's something that I completely believe in. And this is my attempt to change the world 1 kilo at a time. I'm Dr. Saurabh Jindal signing off. Best wishes for your endeavor to do this incredible magical method of intermittent fasting. Hope this video helps you in understanding the nuances of why this is so good to do. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. Please share this. I am doing this so that people understand the power that they have in their own hands, and that power is not to put too much into your mouth. Be intelligent what you put, and then your body will reward you with health. Thank you very much.